Hey, what's up everyone? It's Harrison here. I go by Subliminal Sequences. I wanted to teach you guys a really quick hack or tip that you can use to create some awesome melodies. And if you get stuck in a rut, sometimes writing music, it can be tough and you can feel a lack of creativity and uninspired. And I found this really helps with that. So what is it? It's just simply using keyboard mode and all the scales that the Syntakt offers to create some awesome melodies, some really cool progressions. I want to just dive right into it. So what we're going to do, you're just going to hold function and do a quick tap of the track button right there. And that will actually put you into keyboard mode. You'll see that there's a bright red light. It was not as illuminated before. And there's another way to get into it too, to actually look at the menu. If you do a long hold, function plus long hold right there on the track button, you'll get right into the UI. So what we have here is there are three sections. We have the KB scale, root note, and KB fold. KB scale is going to show you the scale we're in. We're in Lydian right now. And I'll just kind of scroll through some of the scales that you can see. We have Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. These are all scales that as a guitar player I'm familiar with, but there are a lot of funky scales. They have a blues scale. There are a lot of just scales that I'm not familiar with, which is really cool. I'll put the list of the scales on screen right here, but there is a lot of different combinations you can mix up and match with these scales. So the next section is the root note. The root note is going to be what it says. It's the root note. It sets the root note for the chosen scale. You can, you flip through that and choose what octave you want that root note to be in. I have D6 as my root note. Lastly, we have the section called KB fold, and you can swap. If you turn this H knob, you can go from on to off, right? And you'll see if you look at the bed here of the buttons, they're changing, right? So there's a difference between it being off and on, and I'm just going to go over those high level. So we start out in KB fold off. That is a more of a traditional keyboard layout, as you can see with our visual here. When I hit the notes, kind of signifies with the bottom and top row of the keyboard, the black and the white keys, which is nice, but I think you really get the most out of this tool when you switch to keyboard fold on. That gives every single trig a sound. So if we go down to here, we're on the root note D, octave 4. If we just go ahead and listen, that is, as you saw, every trig played a note in the Lydian scale, and it's really nice. When you're in the right octave, you can really do some cool stuff with it. You'll notice we have some blue trigs that are lit up, and everything else is kind of a white color. And what these blue trigs signify is octaves. So if you listen to this note, this is going to be an octave higher, or lower, excuse me. And same with this note, this will be an octave higher. So right now I've been using the, I'm using track 11 right here, and it's an analog sound. It's using an analog machine. And the digital machines and the analog machines function a little differently in keyboard mode. The digital machines span up to 10 different octaves, middle, 4 up, 5 down. And the analog drum and analog cymbal voices have only 8 octaves that they span. We're actually using an analog track, so we only have 8 octaves to really play with. And what you're going to see is that we're on the root note D, and certain octaves, every note can play. But if you go too high up, you're going to see there are repeat notes. For example, these two notes are the same. Same with these two. Same with all these. Great. So what I like to do is, if you're unfamiliar with music theory, this is what I would recommend. If you have a track, and we're going to go ahead and check out this really quick track I drafted up. Nice little banger. Let's go ahead and listen to what I got going on. So what you want to do with your track is look at what's going on. So we have this kind of pluck that just continues throughout the entire song, and that is then that's a D note. And if we look, we're actually using the SY chord machine, and it is a major 7. So that's a D major 7 that's repeating throughout the entire song. with a different, there's some modulation and some LFOs going on, some really cool stuff. I actually like this sound a lot. But this D major 7 is just repeating throughout the entire track. So, I thought to myself, I know a little bit about music theory, and I know about, major and minor and which scales fall into which. But if you're unfamiliar, you can just look up D major 7. I'll show a visual on the screen. You can just go, what scales go in D major 7? Or if you have more than one, this is an example of where one chord's repeating throughout the whole thing. But if you have multiple chords that make up your song, you can throw those in and go, what chord progression is this? What is this? What key is this in? And then go, what scales are in that key? And you'll be able to find quickly the scales that work with that key. So two major scales, we'll go back into keyboard mode. Two major scales that worked with this key is Lydian and Ionian. So right now we're in Lydian, and these are just major scales. There's other major scales that work as well. Where is it? Ionian right here. And Lydian, and I played around in both. Lydian is the scale for this. Like, if I had to say one scale for D major 7, it's Lydian. It works really well, at least with this concept. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a little jamming out on top of my track and show you how keyboard mode can be used, or the benefits of keyboard mode. So let's go ahead and just play our track. And I'm going to use, remember I'm using an analog machine, so I have 8 octaves to play with. And let's go ahead and hear what we got. Let's get a little higher. And as you'll see, when I hit the notes, they show. So that's an F sharp, that's a G sharp. So if you're, curious about the music theory, it shows you all the notes where you would be theoretically hitting that on a keyboard. And you can, bounce around between octaves just by hitting that up or down button. Was Lydian, and you're going to see, I think that sounds a bit better than Ionian, but here's another one. So here is Ionian. Let's jam out on that. So that was a little bit of sour note. And now let's say you really like something you've been noodling around with and you want to record that, right? All you do is just hit record and play at the same time. Pretty standard stuff for live recording on Electron boxes, but hit them both and you're going to see we got that flashing record button. And now you can just kind of jam over your track. Hope you guys thought this was useful and helpful, and drop a like and follow this channel if you're interested in more music content. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.